Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind my friend from Minnesota who's talking about party line votes. We want to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, whether it's insulin or across the board, which we've done in the Build Back Better bill that's sitting in the Senate. And I can say I think virtually every single Republican voted against negotiating prescription drug prices. I want to talk about a free market. You ought to be able to negotiate prescription drug prices so that Americans across the board get the best possible prices for their drugs. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Morelle, a prominent and distinguished member of the Rules Committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the distinguished and by his own admission highly caffeinated gentleman from Colorado, my Rules Committee colleague and great friend, Mr. Perlmutter, for yielding me time. I rise today in support of the rule and the underlying legislation. In particular, I'd like to say a few words about the Affordable Insulin Now Act. Over the past 2 decades, the cost of prescription diabetes drugs like insulin have artificially skyrocketed by more than tenfold. A few years ago, I was proud to commission a report by the House Committee on Oversight and Reform to determine the extent of this price gouging and how it is affecting communities across the country, including my own in Rochester, New York, and the impact it's having on patients, especially older adults and our uninsured population. The results of that review were staggering. In communities across the country, out-of-pocket costs have risen by 400% for the Medicare program and beneficiaries over the last decade. The average price for a standard unit of insulin in the United States was more than 10 times the average price in a sampling of 32 other countries. These excessively inflated prices have real consequences in how patients manage this chronic disease. I've talked with many patients and families in my own district that have had to ration their dose or stop taking this life-saving and life-sustaining medication altogether. For the richest and most powerful nation in the world, to allow this to continue is nothing less than shameful. In passing this bill, we are taking the first step of many to rein in these inflated costs and protecting patients to ensure the best possible health outcomes. I'm so proud to deliver for my constituents back home, and I look forward to voting for this rule and getting one step closer towards seeing the bill passed into law. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.